happens publicly through responsibility.
Today's session is about shifting that perspective from open source as a resume line to open source as an engineering classroom.
It is our privilege to host Mr. Akshat Batra for this expert session. Sir is currently working as a senior consulting developer at ThoughtWorks, where he focuses on building scalable, robust, and production-grade systems using modern
बिल्ड
engineering
फॉर फन से नहीं
practices.
है ये.
It is our privilege to have Akshat Batra sir as one of our judges in the round one
बंद कर दी
evaluations
मैंने
of
स्ट्रीम.
SEH 2.0. With close to 5 years of industry experience, his work spans full stack development,
देख रहा हूँ.
distributed systems, cloud native architectures, and microservices based systems. He actively
हमारी
advocates
मेरी आ रही है
engineering
आवाज.
best practices such as test driven
मेरी आवाज आ
development,
रही है.
sensible defaults, and clarity in system design.
Beyond industry, Sir is deeply involved in the open source ecosystem as a mentor, speaker, and contributor. He has mentored students across national open source programs and is widely known for encouraging learning driven, responsibility oriented contributions rather than resume focused participation.
This perspective aligns strongly with the core philosophy of SEH 2.0, engineering before optics and learning before outcomes.
Sir will be speaking to us today on the topic Open Source as an Engineering Classroom, not a resume hack. Through this session, we hope participants gain clarity on how open source can shape engineering maturity, system thinking, and professional discipline beyond surface level achievements. With this, I invite Sir to take over the session. Over to you, Sir.
Sure. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, let me share my screen. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
यस सर.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So as everyone knows, the topic is open source engineering classroom. So I will just probably uh, go a bit on the agenda. This is a bit of a overall theme. Okay, hey, why open source? What's a resume hack and a problem around it? And how do we see that as a engineering classroom and what college teaches what's versus the real world application and what we actually can learn through open source, which we might lack while just making a project in college. So now, before we actually jump into this, hey, can we get a count of how many people have already are under aware of open source projects or contributed to? Okay, we have some people.
And so this since the session is also live streamed on YouTube, others are also there.
Yeah.
This is the limited count here.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, just a glimpse of what is, if people are not aware, we'll just the definition is on the right. But it's a more of a collaborative project style where anyone can start an open source project, and then anyone is free to modify, distribute, or enhance the project. So let's say if you have an idea, but you feel like, hey, I'm not best of my abilities to take it to the next level. So you call out to community, hey, let's build it together, right? So let's say someone wants to make an operating system and you want to say, hey, I don't know enough about it. I start up my idea. This is my idea. I'm starting an open source project and everyone is free to come, and contribute. So then you get a whole pool of engineers, brilliant minds across the world, and then you can just collaborate and, learn by building something, right? For real. So now, why people are very much interested in open source contribution, right? And why do we want to contribute, right? So one, I think it adds value to resume. Uh, but why? Why does it add value, right? And if someone has already seen, like there's a list of some popular open source projects like Visual Studio Code, IDEA, IntelliJ IDEA, Linux is very popular, Node.js and Git. So yeah, can anyone tell why we add open source to our resume and why it will help us?
Hi, good evening, sir.
Yeah.
I think in my now I'm in final year, and when I was in third year, we used to participate in some open source competitions like GSOC and SSOC, and from there we we I think we participate in open source contributions because it gives us a real-time experience of working on a live projects that are contributed by many other people, and it also helps us to get a feedback on something that we are building. So
Mhm.
it also give us a touch of what the world is doing on a tech.
Right, right. So how did you chose the project? So is it like you just went through just for points, certificates, or for learning?
Uh, yeah, because yeah, obviously, first of all, it is for learning, but it also give us an aura of competition because a lot of people are participating in a particular competition. Like I have said, GSOC, Google Summer of Code. So it already create a environment of competition. So that's why.
Mm-hmm. Right. So a lot of these program are not very standardized. Like Google Summer of Code is a bit high level, it has a benchmark and setting, but there are a lot more projects which does not have a very benchmark, right? So then people are, very the contribution actually gets very diluted. So even if you're contributing like 10 PRs, you're not learning the good practices, right? Because let's say the maintainer is not skilled enough to guide the whole contributors, or the project's very initial phases, that everyone is not adding that much value, because a lot of these programs cater to a lot of very fresh audience. So now everyone is not that skilled and they're not very confident enough in their skills to, hey, I can contribute a lot to this. So a lot of this people got into a problem, right? So then the problems actually comes out of these programs is like something like this. So everyone is creating issues and PRs around README, which won't add any value to your skill set, right? Like when a very fresher, very beginner level, you're just contributing to README or some documentation. At the earlier level, it is might be the helpful part. The okay documentation, architecturing might help, but not like everyone is contributing to README, right? And then comes like a spammy PR, right? So someone just randomly create a PR which say, hey, any random description. This is example of one spammy PR, any random title, any random comment, and then there are a lot of these, which does not add a lot of quality content to open source. So also it will not help you in your skills developing, right? You might learn a bit, like okay, get how to create pull requests, how to contribute to code, but that will never add up to your skills. Right? Has anyone seen any of these PR issues like this, or everyone I think feel would have already done some part of it, easiest contribution, hey, let's go get 20-30 points out of a program. So but how do we want to, how do we feel like okay, how we can actually get the most out of an open source project, right? How do we think of this in an engineering classroom, right? So now let's compare how different a college project or college skills versus open source teaches us. So now college basically has a curriculum around it, and then we let's say hey, we focus on DSA for interview skills and all, and we're majorly focusing on the DSA and probably some project which will add some value to our resume, or to get us some job, right? And then we have assignment and marks. But when we go to open source, it's a very open world, right? It's very industry level. So now then you see the real messy code, right? So now when you compare this to your real the project in your college, it's a very smaller project, right? You don't know the coding practices, you don't know the standards, you don't know the what's the best way, right? So let's say naming convention. So you might say int x equal to 10, right? But now you don't know, after let's say 1 year, 2 year later, you go through your code and you're not able to understand because your code was never having a code naming convention or the clean code practices. So you know the real messy code is there, and then you understand, hey, okay, some people have done a messy code, then you have to clean it up. But in your project or a smaller college project, you have the 4 team, you might not understand is it's a messy code because that's the only code you might have seen, right? And then open source also help you understand team collaboration, right? Like someone has done something, you are doing something else, and then it's a harmony of both of these should work together well. And then there are production bugs, users, right? So like production bug is, let's say the open source project which is actually live. So let's say consider VS Code. We are using VS Code, and someone just contributes some code, and then it breaks the whole system. Then now you are not able to open it. Now you're not able to make the most out of the tool. So there's a production bug which actually impacting a lot of users, right? And then user is the end user of the product. The similar way, VS Code someone is using, and let's say, for example, let's say React is open source, and it impacts so many millions of people around the globe. And one production bug can hamper all the business, everything else. So yeah, when you understand the criticality of your code actually impacts a lot of people, then you figure out, hey, okay, I need to be very cautious of what is put out there. So yeah. So now, just to get a glimpse of how much of a, also like when we see a comparison of code, our college code is very small. It's a very small subset of a real production system, right? So it's a site insight on how much lines of code Linux has. So Linux is one open source project, and it has like around 27.8 million lines of code. So now the code base is so massive that it's not a 1 day job. It's span over decades long project, right? So it's been enhanced, and when you go to a open source project, you see, okay, I need to understand that whole thing, right? Also, not the whole thing, you don't need to think too much of let's say, do not get that, okay, oh, this is so much code, right? So now you understand, okay, this is a small task for me. You see the issues, you see the problems, or bugs at hand, and then you understand a chunk of the code. You don't think, hey, I have this 27 million code, but your code might impact everything, right? So that's the criticality you need to understand, but also the lines of code, right? You understand, hey, there are tens of different things in the whole code base. Everything is harmonically, working together well. And then it gives you that whole aura. So let's say if you, when you go to industry, right, when you go to a job, there might be a legacy system, right? So going across decades for projects, and then you see the whole journey of code, how it started, how it transformed into a new system, right? And then there's a lot of code always, right? And then this is a scale, this is the sum insight of how much people actually contribute, right? So this is like a one monthly insight of VS Code. So like there are around 1600 commits every month, and like 82 authors contributing to the same VS, the open source project, right? So now when you're doing some project, right, on open source, you're contributing. So you're contributing this many people, right? So there's always a rush of, hey, I want to do first, I want to do first. But sometimes you feel there's some projects which are very, not very popular, but will add a lot of value. So there's a lot of open source projects. Or I feel like if you do not find a good project, you can always start one and probably ask, industry leader, hey, can you help me out? This is my open source project. Give me some, guidance. And then you build in the whole public eye. right? And then you learn by doing. So now, what we actually learn out of this, right? So now one skill which is like reading large code base. So as we see, right, there's so much of a larger code base, and then when you are going through code bases, you're already used to that part, right? So now, the more you go through the codes, the more you understand the flows, right? So now there's always how the scale of the code grows, and when you're used to that ecosystem, you know, larger code does not scare you, right? So now, which is also a very realistic skill which you need in an industry. And then you understand, hey, what is writing maintainable code, right? So let's say if you write today, it should be good for a year, right? It's on decades. It might not change a lot, right? So your code not have that do so many, let's say naming convention. So your code is so clean today that after 10 years also, people are able to understand how that is written. And then code reviews is, I think, one good thing which we get, right? So we get free mentorship around people. So let's say, hey, I want to contribute to React project, and I put a very basic part, and then there are maintainers of React will say, hey, can you change this part? Can you change it better? So you get a free mentorship about what is the right way to do it, what are the naming convention, what is the clean code standards, what are the test coverage, and then area of and then it will improve your coding skills in a different scale, right? And it will also give you more insights on how it everything grows and works in industry, right? And then the PR discussion, right? So like you will raise a PR, you explain your thought process, you will validate your ideas, and they will, there's a to and fro discussion around, hey, okay, why this is the best approach, why this is not the best approach, and then you learn the other side, right? So you might have one perspective, but the other person who has ample amount of context will say, hey, this might not be the best approach, and then you go into discussion, hey, okay, yeah, this might be a better fit for now, and then you have that whole discussion, and then you learn more on that discussion. And then like CI/CD failure, which is more for sensibility fault. Okay, hey, if my code is merged, it should maintain that much standard. Let's say code coverage is one check, so linting is one check, so that pipeline should be passing. And then when you feel, hey, now my code is actually deployed, right? So you will feel very, you feel that winning position. Hey, yeah, my code is actually finally merged, and then you can just brag about it, right? Let's say you contribute to Git or you contribute to Linux, and then it goes to production, and you can actually see that you can be proud, right? Ki, hey, I've actually contributed to some real problem, and then real bugs, right? So in college project, we do not have very real bugs which has an impact, right? But when you see open source, every bug which is a critical thing has an impact. So let's say you might have heard of CrowdStrike, it going down, right? So one bug, the whole system went down, and then a lot of this had impact. So a lot of system went down, a lot of business were hampered just because one real bug actually went into market, right? Uh, yeah. So now, just I think we have, I think, majorly covered most of them. But yeah, so now how do we actually start, right? Well, it's a very basic of open source. Okay, now, one, we understand what is our skill set, what's the best we feel comfortable in, right? And then we find beginner friendly issues, right? So now you might have heard of good first issue, which is like a beginner friendly thing. And then you can just say, search GitHub. Hey, GitHub, can you help me? Uh, so yeah, good first issue is one, beginner friendly issues you can find. So you go to any open source project, you find good first issue, tag on it, and then you find a very beginner thing, and you start, hey, you say comment, hey, can you assign me this issue? And then the major idea is you also make a short-term goal. It's not like one PR. So I think I would say prefer on projects which you really like, right? or project you feel you might use, right? So let's say we are using some library, let's say some JSON parser you're using, and then you feel, hey, there's some issue which I am facing. I might want to contribute. So you go create an issue, start working, contribute, and then you feel like, hey, yeah, I am actually contributing. This is what actually solved my own problem, and then it will help a lot of people. And then you make a goal, ki, hey, I will be very consistent on this part. And then when you be very consistent on stuff, you actually grow more as a developer. Also, it has a different impact. So let's say, for example, this is one of the real life story which I found. So now this person started with one PR, two PR, three PRs, and then the CEO of Open Source actually committed, hey, would you like to work with us, right? So now there's a journey of this. So you're a contributor, and then you're very core contributor of a project. You might become a maintainer. You're maintaining the whole project, and then you become more of a. You might get a job itself, or you might feel, hey, I might not be able to work directly with uh, Linus Torvalds, the founder of Linux, right? But I can contribute to the same project he does. He might review my PR, right? So might be able to work with the brilliant minds across the world just because it's an open source project. There's no bound of a company. There's no bound of a skill set. So you feel, hey, this is one project where we can all brainstorm and make the most out of it. Anything? Yeah. So
Yes,
now,
sir, I have a
yeah,
question. Sorry.
go ahead. Go
Sir,
ahead.
how is the open source development typically differed from university projects?
So yeah, I'm saying that. So one open source anyone can own, right? So university project, I'm saying, see, it's like a one-time thing. Let's say 6 months, 1 year, you might be doing on the project, right? But will you take it out, right? Will it be a actual thing, right? So now in university project, you might have a team of four, right? But then
Uh,
in open source project, you have a whole industry to do, right? So the scale is different, the standard is different. So the college project, no one is actually telling you, hey, what is the industry standard, right? What is
yeah,
the benchmark? What is the quality standard? What is testing, right? So you might have seen, hey, a lot of project is based on functionality. You're not thinking of, okay, what is the code coverage? What is the naming convention? Are we doing version control? Do we actually have a user, right? So, but for your when you're going for an open source project, you might have a user. You might have someone who's actually using that product, right? You might have actual whole
real-time
ecosystem
users.
around. You might have an ecosystem around it. So you need
Yes,
to understand, okay, hey, let's say VS Code is one, that the whole ID is there as an ecosystem, and then people are building plugins that gaining a lot of like there's so many plugins around just for that project, right? There's so much dependency, so many people are already using it. So then you understand the scale of it, and then as they're actually decade old, you see that, okay, now that whole journey of the project, right?
yeah. So one more question. As I'm understanding, open source development is also one of the majority of reading code bases.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah, so what are the practical skills we learn from reading these large code bases? Like, how will it be helpful for us to be creating something?
So one is understanding how a scalable project works, right? So now you need to understand where the entry point is, right? So let's say you might say, hey, Java has a main class, right? But then if you see a scalar Java project, it has modules. So every module might have a main class of its own, right? There's a whole ecosystem of multiple architecture, right? Let's say you might have always worked in monolithic architecture, but then when you go to open source, they might have a microservice architecture. They might have different use case as a whole. Right now, you're probably using APIs. They might be using GraphQL, right? So you understand the trade-off. Ki, hey, which case REST API is preferred, which case GraphQL preferred. So now you understand that use case of a project. Ki, hey, you deep dive into part. One module might be using REST API, one module might be using GraphQL, one module might be using gRPC, right? So now same thing, but every use case have a very different subset of technology. So your tech stack is also very, what's that, scaled itself, right? So now you have a lot of practices. Let's say you might have heard of design patterns, right? But that project is already using it. So you understand, okay, if I say strategy design pattern, where are we using it, right? So you actually map the theory with the practical, which your college project might not have, right? So you might not see every place, every design pattern in your college project, but you can always see all any of the design pattern in a good project, right?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You can also see, like optimization. Let's say, hey, if it's a, let's say fintech, right? Every second counts. Every second is it's crores of rupees, right? So now you also understand that if I'm making something of this very specific domain, every second counts, right? So you can always understand, hey, let's say I'm making a project on different domain. So you also learn that part. Hey, let's say for example, you want to make something e-commerce, right? So you find some open source around Amazon, and then you learn, hey, how Amazon works this way, how Amazon behaves as is, and then you also compare it to, then you learn that whole ecosystem, right? So hey, what are the keywords, what are the, concept, what are the, how the code flows, how the business flows. So you have that
Yes,
whole area around it.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, may I ask?
Yeah.
So, what do you see while contributing? I mean, do you check if the project matches your tech stack, or do you check it matches you with your interest or philosophical interest, whether it's align more your interest?
I would say first, as a very beginner, you should look into your tech stack, because let's say you want to enhance your tech skills only, right? So let's say you are learning Java, you want to enhance your Java skills, right? So at the very beginning, start with a tech stack, because you're comfortable, right? If you're not comfortable, you need to learn everything from scratch, right? If you're comfortable, then go ahead. Like if you know multiple programming languages, right, you can always switch between the two, and then you can realize, hey, this might be not my best interest. So I've seen a lot of people contribute to project which they actually use. So let's say there was one project for DM, right? So someone actually used the tool and they be a contributor to it, right? So always start with what's more comfortable, because it will get you more interest in that, right? So because you're learning, you're using it practically. So that's, your easy goal for you, right? For your
Okay, sir.
uh, otherwise you have to learn the whole tech stack as well as the whole project, right? Once you are comfortable in your let's say skills and all, if you feel, hey, I want to give myself a challenge, right, then you can just jump into any project. Because a lot of time I have seen that people have a very strong opinion on what's the tech stack they want to specialize in, right? So if you do not have that interest, you feel like, hey, I'm open to ideas and project, and I'm open to any tech stack, you find a project which you are interested in. So let's say you want to make an operating system, C language is the go-to, right? So you go and see Linux code and start understanding and say, hey, okay, this is the part I want to make, and then copy it, probably make your own, and then you understand that whole part, like how it fits in,
Yes, sir.
how it starts.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think this is one of the, if someone actually wants to do, they can have, take up their challenge, and probably take one open source project, and and probably understand the project, and probably try to do one PR, and not just a typo or a readme, just to go and understand some project, try to make a meaningful PR, right? Meaningful addition to the project. It's a, if someone want, they can, it's an open thing. Yeah. And we can go to question Q&A.
Sir, I just wanted to confirm one thing or just say my thought on when you said that college projects are not like real world projects. It have large code bases and it is much difficult to understand, in which we have to think the we have to see the naming also, naming conventions. This also works. Then I genuinely remember one quotation of Martin Fowler. Is this correct, sir? Any fool can write code that a computer can understand. Good programmers write code that humans can understand. I just remember this quotation, sir.
Yeah, that's true, right? So now, how you achieve code maintainability is if you have a cleaner code, right? So there's a term as a developer experience, right? So if your code is not very much readable, you need a lot of, let's say you do not understand that whole code after seeing, it's very hard to maintain later. Let's say you're working it right now, seriously for 3 months, and your exam come after a month, you might also forget your code, right? So that's not the actual good way of coding, right? So now if you name it very well, if you make it more, let's say documentation is there, you have a good naming convention, it's clean code. So whenever you come, you can always start from that level. You don't need to re-understand your own code, right?
So that's why I think documentation is very much important in software engineering industry also.
Yeah, yeah. Well, documentation also gives you a history, right? So now, currently, let's say you start a very new project. As per today's insight, you build something like this. But 2 years later, let's say some new invention came, new practices come, or new tools come, and then you migrate to a different solution, right? So your learning has changed, your experience has changed. So you always enhance your project, right? So let's say you start with a very basic project, let's say e-commerce, and then after a decade it becomes Amazon or Flipkart, right? So it might start as a very college project thing, very basic project, and then it scales to a very big, you know, scalable system or a multi-million company. So if you don't document that, you don't have that journey. Ki, hey, why I made this decision, why I chose this practices, why I chose this, let's say, design pattern, why I chose this library itself.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you, sir, for giving such an insightful session. Sir, I've got a question. Like, I really don't know about open source that much. I'm just a beginner. I've heard it 2 or 3 times, but I've not worked on it. I just wanted what should be my ideology if I start working on open source.
Uh, so I think if open source, you might see there are a lot of category, right? So if you see there are some like you might have seen this, let's say programmer, right? Let's say Google is a bit Google GSOC of Google is a bit high level, but you can always go there. But if you want to do very daily contribution, right? So there are a lot of projects around. So let's say free code camp is there. You can say, hey, this is has a good number of contributors. There is some, let's say you want to contribute to DSA and some problems, right? So there, I think one app website which is exorcism something. So they have this whole tracks for Java, Python, and all, and you just contribute to programming, let's say DSA problems and all. So that's one way, but there are levels of open source, right? You might have seen very beginner open source projects starting in a lot of these programs. Let's say Social Summer of Code, Girl Script Summer of Code. There's a lot of programs around. Let's say there's also Hacktoberfest, which comes in October. So the whole month of open source projects and a lot of projects also give you hey, if you contribute this much, we also give you something. So there are also gifts and all. So if you let's say if you count Hacktoberfest, if you like do 6 PRs in the month, which is approved and merged, you get a T-shirt. Right. So there are scales of project and there are a lot of well, you can always start with a very basic project, go to GitHub and see, and then Now let's say share my screen. So now if you see, if you just search like let's say for example Hacktoberfest, right? So now you have this whole like participant guidelines. What is this? You know what to do, what is how to learn, and then if you just search Hacktoberfest GitHub, right? This- yeah, it's like a GitHub topic, and then you just see the label, and like these are all the projects we are looking for, you know, contributions. Let's say, hey, terminal is one, and then you can also check your skill set here. So let's say you want to contribute to JavaScript, right? So then you say, hey, okay, Axios is one, Meteor is one. So you can just figure out, hey, these are the project which are, you know, looking for open source. And let's say if you want to just say, hey, very beginner friendly issues. So there's like, if someone has created this whole website around it, which will find open source project, which is like a beginner friendly issues. So good first issue is a tag which GitHub on GitHub people use. Also GitLab also has this good first issue. So it just means, hey, beginner friendly issues. And then you can just look at your tech stack and lets you see what is the last activity. So you also understand ki if the project is highly maintained or you know how active the project is, right? So see what is the most active project. So if you see some project which is like not you know active in a month or some year, you won't contribute, right? So there's more not much maintainer is not active and all. So let's say hey, it's 15 hours ago is the project, right? So let's say if you go here, go to issues, and if you just say hey, good first issues, and then you get a list of issues you can contribute. So you can just go inside, say, hey, can I contribute? And then you start looking at what the task is. So if you feel, hey, I don't understand that issue, ask question, ask clarification. You know, you have the two and four flow conversation, right? And everyone is very open in contributing, right? But yeah, if you're active, people will help you out. So if you know this, you can just comment like this. Hey, Quest team, can you help me out with this and all? And then people will review and all. So if you just some person has created a PR, someone will review. You get that whole review of your code and all. Yeah, hope that solves.
Thank you, sir.
So my question is that I participated in SIH few months ago. So whenever I see a problem statement, I go blank. So how can we matlab, proceed to a problem statement and in which direction?
So you're saying problem statement as a tool or like some DSA?
Like a tool.
Okay. So right now I think one idea is you understand what is actually asked, right? So what's the end product look like? You might have already, you can just compare this to DSA, right? Like what's the audience, what's the input, what's the outcome, right? So once you understand who you're building something for, like what's the business problem, you can actually cut short. Hey, okay, if this is the my end user, how well I can help them. So let's say if you're building some application for kids or students, right? So you need to think of them as an audience and what are their challenges or business struggles, and then they cut down the problem statement and all, understand. Hey, okay, uh, what's my end user, how I understand, and probably what's the best tool for them. Problem statement will give you what are the business challenges and all. You need to understand ki, hey, this is the business challenge and how well we can give a solution to that. Right. Also, I think right now AI is very prominent, right? You can just ask, start with one point, ideate with it, get a more clear area around it. Let's say you're not very new to some domain. Let's say you're trying to do a problem statement of agriculture, but you're not aware of anything around agriculture. So you research on your own, ki, hey, what are the general challenges of agriculture? Understand that whole domain. What are the struggles they have? And then AI will help you, at least trim down on your problem statement, what is your go-to part, what are the higher level of understanding, and then you deep dive, right?
So we have got some question in the Q&A section, so I will read that out to you.
But,
Sir, is there any kind of generic open source code base which will help me build my fundamentals?
yeah, I'm saying that. So one, there's no standard, right? Open source. Open source is more of a community-driven thing. So if the maintainer is not very skilled, right, the quality of open source actually degrades, right? So there's no actual go-to thing. But I would say if you just want to have a benchmark of what's a good open source tool, go to open source of good companies. Let's say Google has their own website for open source. Facebook has their own website of open source. So the ample of good maintained project. Let's say Microsoft has their own, GitHub has their own open source tool. So you can start or receive them as a benchmark and then probably try to match their standard, right? Because if you just go randomly, the maintainer is the quality, right? So if maintainer is not skilled enough, the project might not have a very much standards, right?
Thank you, sir. So yeah, Multa, go with the second question.
So, in today's time, how AI is affecting open source contribution?
Yeah, so I was mentoring this some I think one program, and we see a lot of vibe coding developers not even running the code and just contributing to a lot of this. So we are also looking at the spammy PRs and all. So AI usage is fine as long as you understand what you are doing, right? Well, no one is stopping you from AI, but there's a lot of people who just use vibe coding and AI blindly just to get points, right? So that's why I'm saying that there's a lot of programs does not have a very benchmark, right? So just people just go and rush for points. Ki, hey, the top three will get some, let's say internship or goodies or some cashback, cash prize, something, right? So everyone is in a rat race of getting more points, but they're not actually understanding the usage or use case of the problem or the project a maintainer wants to make, right? So it's very hard for a maintainer and a, let's say, mentor to understand, hey, it's a AI driven thing, and let's say if you just merge and it won't add a lot of actual value. So, but yeah, no
The
one is
next
actually stopping
question.
anyone from using AI. It's just you understand what you are actually contributing. So go ahead.
Okay. So the next question is it necessary to contribute to the existing open source projects, or can we start our own project?
I think it's free. Feel free to start your own if you feel like, hey, I want to learn by doing. Like I have started one open source on a like a headless CMS, right? Because I like the whole concept of it. I wanted to make this, hey, understand that whole, internal working and all that whole, ecosystem want to learn. So started one of my project, and then you understand that, you can always start your own, and then the main idea is you have to be very active ki, hey, you tell that issues, you have to be very skilled to maintain, or you find people to become maintainers, right? Because let's say when we start as a very beginner, we are also not aware, right, ki, hey, how this grows, right? Everything is very new, so we need to learn about a lot of things. So maintainer, being a maintainer, starting a project is not that hard. It's just will you be what's your goal, right? Do you want to make a library someone uses, or you just want to learn a concept? If you want to learn a concept, go ahead. If you want to have that learning, and you just probably, hey, let people know, hey, go to LinkedIn, say, hey, I'm making this project, we'll need some guidance, get someone help, right? So you can always scale that project into a good outcome of our, let's say, production grade system. But yeah, you might have to be more proactive on, hey, can people come and collaborate, right? But yeah, you need to be very focused on now the spammy PRs, right? because people just come for the resume part, but they do not add a lot of value. So you need to be very active on ki, hey, if someone is adding code to my code base, is it good enough? Is it adding value?
So the next question is, as you mentioned, there tends to be a rush of beginner level issues initially. How should we navigate that?
Uh, that's a good tricky question. But yeah, you can all. I'm saying not like there's only one project, right? There's always a lot of projects, right? And one way is you can always create your own. And if you're creating, maintainer actually prefer it, right? Like let's say you go use the tool, found a bug, found some enhancement, create an issue, ask the maintainer, or let's say maintainer whoever is maintaining the code, okay, hey, can you sign me the issue, right? So if you have found something new, or let's say you want to enhance something, they will get that to you. That's a preference in the open source, as everything is open, community initiative. It's open, and everyone can just go and rush. So let's say you create 10 issues, but you do not have enough bandwidth, or enough time to do. So you can just take three, let the seven be with others, right? So even if you're not contributing as a core, you are also finding issues, bugs, and all. So let's say you're using some tool, but you do not want to code or something. You just go and say raise a bug. Just that customer care support. You're raising a bug. Hey, this is the issue I'm having. Can someone help? So that will become an issue, and someone will come and fix it. Either you go and fix it, or someone else will come and fix it. So think of that as a customer support. Right? So if you create your own, you are preferred ki, hey, yeah, this person can actually work. If you do not want, you can just let someone else do that part.
Sir, I guess we are done with the questions. So, once again, thank you, sir, for your time and valuable insights. To all participants, we hope this
So,
session helps you engage with open source more intentionally as you continue your journey through SH 2.0.
so I had a
Here we
question. If
actually
you're having a
had
little,
a number of students at YouTube also. You joined us on YouTube. You are here and they still have the questions. If you have time, maybe please continue with the Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
Mm, so, hello, sir. I
Yeah.
had a question. So, uh, since I've heard your resume is, your resume becomes better when you are able to work as an open source contributor. It makes your resume better. So, uh, just like that, I uh, move around, look for two or three projects, shortlist them. But often I get lost in those huge code bases. So and I'm not mostly able to understand, and sometimes uh, it leads to a lot of confusion. So how do you actually deal with that? I need
So a
uh,
lot of very huge project actually build a community around it, right? So if you see, there's a lot of community channel. You can always start. Let's say there might be a Discord channel, there might be some discussion channel. You can always start a conversation. Hey, can someone help me out, right? So they'll have a lot of documentations to get started with.
so
Things.
how is there some website or like Reddit or just
Yeah,
how do
so
we
I'm
find
saying, so if you say, think of one project, let's say Nest.js, right? Nest.js has a
yes.
Discord channel. You can actually go and talk about it, right? So there's some people will come in and, hey, can you help me out, right? So a lot of major projects maintain a community where people can help out the new developers or new contributors. The initial project might not have that part, but very large scale, let's say Google would have something, React would have something, the larger scale, which actually maintains a lot of communities. Let's say you have some
uh,
JetBrains project, they will have some community channel to start a conversation, to discuss.
and sometimes I just go on repos for different projects and just I look at the tech stack and just it might sound a little laid back or a little lazy, but I just look at the tech stack, and if if it's it is something that I've actually used, then I just go with that project. Some of my friends say that it might hinder my learning curve. I might not be able to discover uh, la- new projects or new better ideas if I continue looking for for repos that have my current tech stack.
I think that's fine. So as I'm saying, so one, if your aim is to resume, right? Aim is to get the job. The main idea is you need to be very good at one skill set, right? Because the initial qualification of a job is you know the basics. You have done something good around the tech stack, right? So once you're in a job, you can actually think about a bigger tech stack, right? So there's a whole like concept of T-shaped learning, right? So there's a depth, like how well you know one tech stack, and there's a
Yes.
breadth, right? Like how well aware of are you of multiple tech stack, right? So now it's good to have a depth. Let's say you want to say I'm good in Java. I know a lot of in Java, right? But I can also do React a little, right? So one is your strength, which you say, hey, this is my best skill set. If you ask me, I can answer probably 8 out of 10 questions, right? But if let's say if you ask me React, I might be able to answer four, right? So that's fine. You start with that, get that on a basic confident out of your best skill set, and then you go to learn something else.
So I guess I'm not doing it completely wrong
Yeah, it's fine. I'm
right
saying
now.
so one, that's the big first priority is that one. But then you also need to understand, like when you're thinking of solutioning, right? Let's say when you're thinking of hackathons, when you see the problem statement, you need to think of a more of a tech agnostic way, right? Now, let's say you want to make AI. What's the best tech stack for AI? Python,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So some problem will actually force you to a different tech stack just because it's a special use case. Let's say you want to make application in iOS, you need to get Swift, right? So sometimes problem statement will force you to a different tech stack, and then sometimes you can just make whatever you can, right?
I think there are some more people that want to ask questions, so I'll
Yeah,
leave you
go
with
ahead.
that.
Yeah, I'm going.
We have a question which says, I have shortlisted 2-3 projects like Julia, wanted to genuinely learn and contribute, but cannot navigate and unable to understand how to balance it with placement pressure where they ask us to do DSA. They ask us to focus more on DSA.
Yeah, so now let's say this open source is actually not very time consuming, right? It is time consuming. The main idea it's there's no time limit for it, right? You can always take out some time, let's say you block an hour of a day, and then you understand that part, right? There's no rush, there's no speed, there's no time limit of it, right? So you can always do it in your pastime. And then when the college actually forces you to do DSA, right? So DSA is one skill set you need for interview, and that's true for every scale, right? It's not like the fresher thing. It's always true for all the grades of your life, right? So DSA you need, but DSA you also need to understand because DSA is the core concept of a lot of tech stack, right? So now I was also doing a quick Google. Uh, Let me just probably go this one. Okay, here is that. So yeah, if you see, this is the example, right? So now uh, you need to understand DSA, but you also need to understand where it goes, right? Let's say you're building some project. What's the underlining tech stack of it, right? So now React uses trees for like a virtual DOM. Hash map is a like key elements. If you want to do batching, there's a queue, right? So now DSA is your core concept, and every tool or framework is already using that internally, right? So when you understand the core basics, you are able to enhance that whole part. Ki, hey, okay, if some virtual DOM of my React is failing, this is because of some tree issue, right? So I'm missing some of that. Let's say there is some graph technology used in Angular and Vue for dependency tracking, right? So there's a lot of core concept which you actually need to use in your project, right? Let's say when you're actually contributing to these tools, you might need to understand, hey, what is the underlying DSA which is used there, right? So let's say Node.js uses queue, priority queue, stack, right? So yeah, but yeah, DSA you still need. You can't say no to that. But yeah, as open source does not have a time limit, you can always say, hey, I will do this on weekend. I will do this. Let's say next month and all. But yeah, have a balance of both.
Thank you, sir, for explaining this point so beautifully. We have one another question. What exactly qualifies as a spam PR in open source?
Spam PR is generally when, let's say, maintainer is not asking for it, you're randomly giving it, right? Or let's say someone is just creating a PR just to get that count. So let's say I'm saying, so let's say you might have seen some programs. People just create that. I think the example was the, let's say someone is creating readme PRs, just changing the space, some random gibberish, which is not adding a lot of value. So anything which does not add a lot of value and just let's say AI generated code which is not testable, not working correctly, you are contributing, and the maintainer has already told you, "Ki, hey, this is not adding a lot of value. Can you improve?" Right. So if something is whatever is adding value is not a spam. If something is not adding value and is done repeatedly after the maintainer says no, let's say the readme is everyone is adding some line to readme, which readme is already stable enough, not needing a lot of part, and then you're still adding a lot of that, and then let's say some random thing someone is doing which is not adding or not asked for, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, Pranav Sharma, you can ask your question if you have
Hello,
any.
sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, sir, my question was if I am in an organization or contributing in any kind of open source project, so my commitment or my push, how did how does it defines it as a meaningful commitment? Whatever I am contributing, how is it defined as a meaningful?
As in, can you elaborate a bit?
So what I'm saying is, if I'm making any kind of, uh, if I'm contributing in any way in that project or in open source code, how is it meaningful? How does my commitment, sorry, contribution is defining as to be meaningful for that project?
I think it's more of a how a maintainer sees it, right? So now, let's say I want to make some AI platform, right? So now I have a vision. If you're contributing to that vision, that's a meaningful contribution. If that is not into the vision, or let's say you are not able to convince the maintainer to it, right? That's not a meaningful contribution, right? So let's say someone says there's a VS code. I want to make a mobile application for it, right? But there's no need for it. There's no user for it. So if you say, ki, hey, you're probing that maintainer, ki, hey, can you make this? Until they have a good user base or good enough reason for it, they won't understand as a meaningful contribution. But let's say there's some bug, some security issue, some some quality thing which you feel ki should be a minimal thing, and they understand, hi, this is very much needed, and you're able to convince them. That's a meaningful contribution.
We have a
Thank you,
question
sir.
from Misbah. What should be the characteristics of a good maintainer? As I think Linus Torvald is one of the best maintainers as he is the lead maintainer of Linux kernel.
Qualities. I think it's more of you understand ki one, you're able to communicate what you really want, right? Because sometimes random people with create a lot of very not clear in not clear issues, right? So if issues are not clear enough, the use contributor is not able to understand what the ask is, what's the issue, what's the problem, what's the feature. So one, they need a very good way of telling, hey, this is the problem, this is the issue, and what needs to be done, right? So that is one, and I think being active is another. But yeah, I think after a project grows stable, they have a lot of maintainers, right? They have a whole team of maintainers who is helping people across the globe, because there's always different time zone, there's always different skill sets. So now let's say you have a bigger project, they might have different tech stack, right? Someone has very good grasp on one part, but someone has other grasp on other part, right? So like someone might be best in backend, someone might be best in UI. So they might have different set of maintainers. Ki, hey, can you handle this whole ecosystem, or whole module of it, and whatever comes, do good reviews, add a lot of value, maintain that whole quality standards. Yeah, hope that solves. But yeah, it's always a learning process. You can always understand, right? So, I think one scenario happened with this one, like Hacktoberfest, that people add a lot of spam PRs, right? So then GitHub introduced a spam filter, so people can actually block people from keep creating PRs, right? So there's always new learning to for people. So as we grow into community, there's always new learning, right? So there's always new learning skills to learn.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering every question very patiently. So I think this session helps everyone engage with open source more intentionally as we continue our journey on SH 2.0.
As we are concluding our session, thank you everyone and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a wonderful session. The audience enjoyed it. The organizers enjoyed it, and the whole team. They are like it had been completely wonderful.
Sure, sure. Thanks for calling me. Yeah, if someone has
So,
any other question, do ping me.
so the
Thank you,
next
sir.
part we will be connecting for the judging criteria part, as
Yeah, yeah.
in with
So
respect
will
to the
be as our
hackathon.
panel member with us on 8th as well.
Yeah. Okay. Then
Sorry?
then it's fine.
Looking forward to, sir.
Yeah, sure, sure.
The panel view. 8th of Feb, we have a panel discussion, right? For that one, they are creating.
Yeah.
So we we have Kunal right.
Uh, I feel like if you see this not maintained programs, right? There's no benchmark, right? Everyone is rushing to get points and not actually adding a lot of value, right? So when you're going to a lot of program, like a lot of mass program, right, where like 10K people, 20K contributors there. So there's always a rush of project, right? Like everyone is commenting, one issue is created, 10 people commenting, hey, can you sign me? Can you sign me? And everyone is rushing to just get the points. So I think one idea is understand the quality, right? You need to add qualities thing, right? This is just not about points, it's more of a product coming out, right? So there's a lot of good projects came out of some open source contribution. Let's say if you have heard of Laravel, right? So Laravel is like a PHP framework which is come out of Hacktoberfest. So like a month, people just everyone quality contribution and a framework was built in a month, right? Names, I'm saying this, it's good for you, someone to learn Git and version control. Like if someone is very new to Git, PR ecosystem, GitHub ecosystem, it's good to learn that because now then you learn that first merge conflict, the issues and all, right? So it's good for that. But competition, when I'm saying that that's a mass competition, right? But let's say if you want to target GSOC of Google, right? That's a benchmark. That's a good thing, right? If you do that, you have the quality standard, right? There's also this code for GovTech. If someone has heard of it, has anyone heard of it? So it's a open source project which also pays you. So let's say government of India has every department sends a problem statement. People comment on it, and then some people are shortlisted for a 2-3 months program. Then you get paid also. Like the contributor is paid, mentor is not, which I feel sad. But yeah, but yeah, that's also like adding value to let's say some government department with a very specific problem statement, and the contributor get paid, right? So there are some good programs which is very, very much monitored, right? Where you are also tracked. Let's say Google has also have some, go to goal. Ki after 2 months you have to be able to do this much. So if the program is that much, it's a good quality program. But when you see that whole mass program, like you can't maintain that quality because one, everyone is a project admin, everyone is a maintainer. Let's say the first year college student which who is not very comfortable with the tech stack is maintaining a project. So now one, they're not able to guide the contributors. Other, they're not able to see that whole flow. Like I was one mentoring one project where the project admin didn't know Docker. So like contributor suggested Docker, maintainer didn't know Docker. So then there was a mismatch. So even if the contributor is saying very good part, the maintainer does not understand, right? So that's why I'm saying that. So the skill gap is there. So if someone is, the maintainers need to be very much eager to learn something new. They need to be very proactive on ki, hey, this is my product. I want to make the most out of it. Right. So but yeah, feel free to ping me if you have any other questions. Okay then. Bye.
Bye bye,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Shall we drop from this call? Is this fine?
Yes, I like.
Host can end the meeting from his side, okay?